from 10 to 20 matches going into the postseason. That would be great, because more and more now, like having 35, 40 matches in a year, I don't think is I think it's a thing of the past. I think wrestling is at a very high level, and it's evolved, and it's not that it wasn't intense 15, 20 years ago, but I think just the level of competition is raised, and you're prioritizing the athlete's health so that at the end of the year, they don't have a taped up elbow, a taped up knee, and wrestling at 75%.
Yeah. I asked you, your thoughts from your perspective as a coach, and maybe if you talked to any of the athletes. Let's rewind, I guess, 10 years now to when you were an athlete. What did you think of, and there wasn't really the option, or we didn't really think necessarily a one semester sport, but like, did you like how long the season went? Did you get banged up or physically or mentally, emotionally worn down? And would you have liked a shorter season?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have loved a shorter season. I was telling some of our guys the other day about just dealing with adversity. I 3 of the 4 years at NCAA's, I wrestled with a pretty serious injury, enough that it's going to affect your wrestling to a certain extent. And just thinking about that, there were definitely some times when I didn't need to be wrestling a certain duel in January, or just again, like I said, prioritizing the health of an athlete. I think I wanted to wrestle and everything, because I just love to compete. But for looking back on it, it's not necessarily what I needed. And I think, being a little more vocal with my coaches, or just talking through it, as opposed to like, I'm not going to say anything because I want to compete.
Yeah.
And if they hold me out, like, I'm going to say something, as opposed to, well, we have the end in mind. Like, this duel in January is not gonna matter in March, but your rest throughout the year is going to be important, so we can hit those peaks when we need to.
Sure. You said 3 out of the 4 years you were injured to whatever degree at the NCAAs. What were those injuries?
My freshman year, I tore the meniscus completely off the bone. I did it in a dual meet. We went on a 3-match swing through California, and I tore it in the warm-ups of the first duel, and it progressively got worse through the weekend, and the point where my knee was locking up in the middle of the match, and coaches just looked at me like, we can't do anything about it, And I just, like, in the middle of the match, I remember going out of bounds and like sitting there and just trying to get my knee unlocked. And we came back to Boise and knew there was a meniscus problem, but it was like a lot worse than I expected. And I had surgery in January. And then they held me out for 5 weeks, and all I could do was bike, stair step, like, do what I needed to do. And I came back the week of the conference tournament and qualified, got to the finals, and the injury default. And then we're going about being smart. They injury defaulted me in the finals, and I was really upset about it because I lost to the guy twice in close matches during the year. But then I got a chance to wrestle him at NCAA's, and I beat him in the backside.
Who?
But it was pretty tough because you're probably going to read your knee, just because this kind of thing, like, you need 3 or 4 months to fully recover. I had like 5 weeks, and so
Yeah.
that my junior year in the conference finals wrestling Chase Pammy, I tore my MCL pretty badly. We were in just a weird scramble, and I was trying to wrestle out of it, and he had kind of a foot lock, was on his back trying to get off, and just had a hold of it. And I just, in the heat of the moment, I turned out and I tore it pretty bad. And then my senior year, in a dual meet in February, or late January, early February, shot in and hit a low single, like at the beginning of the match, and the guy sprawled back, jumped back, and dropped his hip right down through my shoulder, and I ended up tearing up my shoulder pretty badly. At that point, I was, number 1 in the country, 26-0 or whatever it was, but it completely changed the way I was trying to compete. My lights just went off.
It's not a power outage, is it? There we go. It's a little sensor.
No. But like I said, it changed the way I wrestled for the rest of the season. It was a point where at NCAA's, I even the conference tournament wrestling Bubba Jenkins, I couldn't really shoot, and I couldn't shoot very well at NCAA's. I had to really manage the match the way I needed to because my shoulder was falling out, and it's just the way it goes. And tough people find a way. And yeah, I got on the podium. I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, but it taught me a lot in terms of if I'm going to be a coach, I'm probably going to have some athletes in adverse situations. And my coaches didn't give me an ounce of sympathy, and that's really what I needed. Because they didn't feel sorry for me. Nobody's going to feel sorry for me. And I definitely can't feel sorry for myself if I'm going to go to the national tournament and try to win a national title, and so I learned a lot through that process, and I've been fortunate enough to coach, a lot of athletes who've been healthy, and it helps me coach now in the room to a certain extent. Like, we remind our guys, look, anything you're doing in the room, we're going to stop you at certain points because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not, a lot of things happen in the room, and obviously in competition, there's certain things you can't control, but we try to manage our guys as much as we can, so you're not going to the national tournament with a serious injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned it. Most, if not all, the coaches at the convention were for it, and it just seems like something that is coming. The question seems to be when, right? I think shortened / maybe second semester sport would be nice. Okay, I want to switch topics. The ACCs are coming up this weekend. I'm curious though, when you were in college, what was the state of the wrestling in the ACC, right? How tough was the ACC compared to maybe to how it is today from your point of view? When Boise was good, Oregon State was tough. I think Arizona State got a trophy, Stanford, and on and on. They were great. The ACC, maybe not what it was today, but I want to hear it from your point of view.
It's funny because Bob Guzzo, the old coach, he'll stop in pretty regularly, and anytime we talk about the latter years of his coaching career, which is the early 2000s, he's like, man, it wasn't very good. To be honest, any team that was if there was a team ranked in the top 25, they were winning the ACCs. And one year he's like, I think we had 7 champs, 7 of the 10, and not saying that they weren't a good team per se, but just the level of competition, there wasn't a whole lot of parity in the conference. When I was at Boise, and I think when you have a team jump levels and other teams want to be a part of that success and do a good job in recruiting and developing guys, that iron sharpens iron, and the league gets better. You look at the rise of the ACC, and that's kind of how it was. Like, Boise was on the rise, and Oregon State was on the rise, and like you said, Arizona State. I mean, the year that I think I was a sophomore or junior, we set the conference scoring record and beat the record that Arizona State had when they won a national title. And we just had a heck of a tournament. I think we put 7 or 8 into the finals. And, in a small conference that's good, that's everything, And so these small conferences, there's 6 teams. Every match is important. And so just being on the ball and I would think that the Big Ten is just a little bit more of a grind. Every match is obviously important, but you have some ability to make up ground in the backside, and obviously punching guys to the semis and finals is really important for team points. But it's the focal point is increased when you're in a 6-team conference.
Yeah, you talked about like every match matters. ACC championships, I mean, you can almost keep track of the team score like as the matches unfold because there are just a couple mats going on. What's that like to coach in a really competitive conference, but one where literally every single match you kind of know how that impacts the team race?
Yeah, we just tell our guys, control what you can control this time of year, to just execute basic technique very quickly and very efficiently, and don't overthink things. Just turn your mind off, be able to go and wrestle. But at the same time, there's going to be strategic times when I'm winning by 2 with 15 seconds left. I'm on top. The only thing I can't give up an escape and quick takedown or a reversal. So I got to just be smart, and you're going to be efficient in what you're doing, but you you have to be smart in that regard to win these close matches, because one match punching a guy to the finals that maybe was a toss up is a huge deal in the team race. And like you said, I think everybody's on edge because there's 5 teams ranked in the top 25, 5 out of the 6 this year, and same as last year. And it's one match can swing a lot of things. So
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Pitt is like very much on the rise, and I think if you look at the seeds, they're predicted to finish 5th. It's crazy, and yeah, it does. It seems like the ACC, I don't know, probably every conference, but maybe it just stands out more. There's always, 1 or 2 major upsets at the ACC championships that basically nobody saw coming. Is that partly because of that, like that pressure? That do guys wrestle tighter in that kind of an environment?
Yes and no. We try to approach it with a mindset of the end of the year, the guys who are attacking and who are aggressive. It's the same throughout the year, but especially so in as you get to the postseason. The guys who are still gunslinging, still putting it on the line, are the guys that are coming out on top, because at the end of the day, like, everybody feels the pressure of, oh, it's the postseason, and you could say it's just another tournament. And, like I said, we try to just have the mindset of go first, go score early, score often, and stay in the moment. Because at the end of the day, when you're on the offense, you're probably putting yourself in scoring positions and putting yourself in a good position to win the match. So we focus on just staying in the moment and focusing, like I said earlier, on the basics, and just execute really well this time of year.
So, it was back in 2015 when we followed along with you guys, and you had a great season and not the greatest NCAAs, right? For probably what you were hoping. As the years go by, are you changing, I assume to some degree, how you're tailoring to the end? This year might be different, right? But how you're tailoring to the end of the year, how you're tapering, how you're getting the guys ready, either physically and or mentally, right? The time of practice, I don't know the kind of conversations you're having and how to get them ready.
Absolutely. I think that was a really good growth and learning year. I think that was my first year, and we went 22-1 in duels.
Yeah.
And you talk about the duels that we had: Minnesota, Missouri, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, Iowa. It was unreal. And I think at a certain point, your ability to hit peaks and come off of it, at some point, I don't care if you're the best team in the country. I don't care how tough your team is. Like, it's really, really hard to maintain a level of fitness. And talking a lot with our strength coach, your ability to hit your peaks repeatedly without coming down off of that peak is really hard to sustain for a long period of time. And you think about like a dual season where you have 23 duels and all the travel, turning around and having to get up for it. I felt like it was like a Big Ten season plus some extra duels,
Yeah.
And so it really helped us focus on, well, what's important? You want to peak at the end of the year. And yes, we need to have some good strategic in-season competitions, matches to prepare our guys for the end of the year. But again, like I said, prioritizing rest and another training cycle mid-year, where you may take a dip to come back and peak again. We've definitely talked about it and gone about it a different way. So, just like they say, if you try to do the same thing and expect different results, it's insanity,
Yeah.
And so we humbled ourselves a little bit, and it was absolutely a fun year. But nothing matters except for the NCAAs.
Yeah. Do you like at the beginning of the year, is there like, obviously it won't be set in stone, but is it like, all right, here's our plan and this is when we want to peak first and this is when we want to peak second, and then maybe, you're adjusting, pulling levers within the season, but is there like a broad picture plan at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, there's there's always a plan. There's always a picture, and we like to work backwards, just from what we're doing and plan everything out week to week, month to month. Um, but at the end of the day, you're in the grind, and you kind of get a feel for where your guys are at, and hey, maybe this guy needs this dual off. He needs just a week. He needs a week of rest, and maybe this other guy, we need to push him a little bit more. It's just that you got to feel your athletes and read your athletes. I mean, the best coaches know that not all their athletes are the same, and you gotta figure out their specific needs. Not to say that we don't train um, everybody hard, but you're absolutely having to look at the individual needs as you get deep into the season.
Do you guys talk with the athletes much about how they're feeling? And maybe they're gonna lie or not lie, but like you said, I'm not taking a duel off. And if coach tells me to take a duel off, I'm gonna fight him with it. Like, do you have these conversations with the guys? Like, I feel like there's more of this going on now than there was 10, 20 years ago where like, hey, let's communicate and hey, coach, I don't feel good and I got to take a match off or trying to understand that. Whereas in the past, like you said, right, you just want to be tough and go.
Yeah, again, it goes back to just being able to read your athletes, and we just remind them that your health, your fitness at the end of the year is the most important thing, and this is what we see, and it's like you're talking to them about taking a step back to take two steps forward.
Yeah.
It's okay to prioritize rest, especially at the end of the year. Just keep the intensity high, and in the middle of the year, it's hard that you look at the needs of your wrestlers, and this guy maybe started the year out a little bit later than some other guys, or doesn't have his match count up. We need to push him a little bit harder at this point, as opposed to let's back this guy off a little bit, so that at the same time, at the end of the year, they're peaking together, peaking at the same time. So you know how it works. A guy gets banged up, or has to take a couple weeks off, or what have you. Things change, and not to say you're straying away from the main plan. The goal is, say at this point, we're going to really push the team hard, maybe take a little bit of a dip, and then come back at a high intensity but low volume towards the end of the year, so guys can peak well. So yeah, there's a shift throughout the year, and this year it's obviously a little bit harder because you don't have as much time to figure it out. But I like it because the intensity is high, and it doesn't feel as much of a grind.
Yeah, this year is, I mean, you talk about you have a plan at the beginning of the year and then you make adjustments throughout. This year it was, I imagine, a little bit harder to make a plan than usual because it's like for a long time we didn't know exactly when the season would start or what it would look like or if there would be tournaments or if there wouldn't. One of the things that seems like it's been harder for a lot of programs, and you guys have had to make hard decisions too, is just like the lineup battles. And 197, you guys have two solid options with Reenan and Trumbull, and at the end, Reenan's in. What was that like to have two guys that are both performing at a high level and to not have like the tournaments to enter them both and then see who comes out on top, and to not have the traditional things that you would maybe use to decide who goes at the end?
Yeah, it's just, again, another tough situation where you, at the end of the year, you want to put the best guy out there who's ready, and both guys were wrestling well, and both obviously have their strengths and weaknesses, but at the end of the day, just seeing and it's something that people don't see because they don't see the day-to-day in the room, and just development and different things. And we're really fortunate to be able to just wrestle all our true freshmen, have some making an immediate impact on our team and in our lineup. But again, like I said, we want to be able to put the best guys who are peaking at the right time and looking their best, put the best team out there. So,
yeah. That's something that has been, I think, something that most sports are in favor of, is being able to use true freshmen throughout the season, and then they can still maintain that red shirt. Obviously, everybody gets the free eligibility year this year. Do you think that we're going to see that shift soon where true freshmen are able to compete a few times without using up a year of eligibility?
That's a good question. I don't know what the NCAA stance is going to be after this point. I mean, we really like the extra matches just to have some guys put on a singlet and be out there in front of a crowd, in front of under the lights. Just get that feel for getting ready to go out and compete, because at some point their time is coming. Yeah, it's interesting. We liked being able to travel on the road with some of these younger guys, so they understand our process, what we do, and what we're about, and why we do what we do. Because there's always a learning period from their redshirt year to their redshirt freshman year. Just understanding why we do what we do. I don't know. It's a good question.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it helps guys jump levels, and you see it all the time. Even in a normal year, true freshmen get thrown to the wolves, and at the end of the day, they're drinking from a fire hose. But you see development just happen because they're getting attention, they're getting the experience. And I look at our wall, and most of the guys who are on our wall didn't redshirt their first year. Pete Renda did not. Kevin Jack did not. He didn't redshirt at all. Gwiz did not redshirt right away. Tommy Gant did not redshirt right away.
Wow.
And so I guess it just depends on what the NCAA says. But we liked some certain aspects of having our guys being able to get out there and get after it right away.
Yeah. Hey, I was just thinking about you're talking about the guys on your wall, and I just realized, we did this thing about the 2008 149 bracket, and Darion was a big part of that. And I know he's been around the program. Do you ever get together, talk with Darion about that bracket? You were round of 12, lost to JP?
Yeah, I lost to JP that year.
Do you ever talk with who? Slater and JP? Is that?
Yeah, Slater and JP.
Yeah, do you talk with Darion about that?
I actually haven't, to be honest. The next time I see him, I'm definitely going to ask him, because he'll make an appearance every once in a while. Pat will have him back as like the honorary captain or something, and
sure.
Just that I'm going to have to talk to him about that. Now that you guys put out a documentary on it, I'd love to hear his perspective from the other side, because I was a redshirt freshman, and looking back, it's like, yeah, it was really incredible, just the guys who were in the bracket. And the crazy thing is I think Gregor Gillespie put out like the next year, maybe 2009 and 157. Yeah. And I went up the next year, and I didn't realize like the number of All-Americans who were in that one as well. It's just kind of crazy, just the ebb and flow of competition. People were talking about, I know Tony Ramos was talking about 2010, 133, and then 133 a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I think it's great. I think it's awesome just to be able to look back and have years like that, because it's so incredible just who came out on top and who came out of the mix. And it's exciting. It's fun for wrestling to have that type of competition.
Yeah, dude, and your senior year bracket was pretty loaded too, right? With Bubba, David, Fittery, Welch, and you. I mean, there are probably more guys I'm not thinking
St.
of.
John.
St. John. Yeah, that's crazy. That's wild, dude. You're in some good ones.
Yeah.
Did you? I assume in 2008 you didn't probably think it was like an exceptionally hard bracket, or did you?
No, I just had even Dustin Slater. I had wrestled him earlier in the year, and I had a pretty good match, I think, at the Southern Scuffle with him. I think in the quarters or the semis. And so, I had the confidence to go at like regardless, whether you wrestle in first round or in the semi, it didn't matter. Like, I knew that you get to the national tournament and you got to be on your best game. I think about a quote I heard from when I was coaching at Columbia from Carl Fraunhofer. He went over to Junior Worlds one year, and the bracket play. They drew the bracket, and the Russian was on the one side with maybe a couple guys, and it was stacked other side, and somebody withdrew from the tournament. They redrew the bracket. Everybody was on the side of the Russian, and he just made a run through the tournament and won the gold. And I heard that somebody went up to the Russian coach or asked the guy, like, what was your mindset or when you saw the redraw and it was not in your favor? And he said, the sooner I get on the bus, the sooner I get to go home. And the thought process is like, whether you wrestle in first round, it's like David Taylor wrestling Yazdani.
Yeah.
Like, whether you wrestle in first round or whether you wrestle in the semis, like what does it matter? Like, you're going to have to take him out at some point. So I just had that mindset that I'm going to go out and try to be a killer, even though I was coming off of a pretty fresh injury and surgery. I you put yourself in the mindset like I'm going to go out and it was a dogfight. It was a war, and even the same thing with JP. It came down. It was a one takedown match. But
At what point did you realize, wow, that was a really tough bracket? And had you ever, we argue all the time about what's the toughest, that, and the other, but yeah, I'm curious.
I think after everybody's career played out, it was like you knew guys were good. I mean, Lance Palmer, Dustin Schlater, Bubba Jenkins, Darian Caldwell, Jordan Burroughs, Chirella, Metcalf. I mean, even the guys that didn't place, and like I said, even the next year in that 57-pound bracket, what are you going to say? Like, oh, I feel sorry for myself that I was in those brackets. Like, no, it was cool. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it is what it is, and but it is cool to look back on and like, wow, that it was pretty stacked, and it's exciting to be able to go back through and like, man, I forgot I wrestled that kid, and I forgot Delaware State had a program, just little things. It's exciting to be able to, and I like the history of wrestling. I'll go back through some of the brackets because I know names in wrestling and I think it's exciting to be able to go back and see like what it was like, and you watch the tape delay or I remember watching this guy make a run or whatever, and I think being a student of the sport ultimately is exciting and how you grow in wrestling too.
I'm looking at the bracket right now, and
08?
Yeah, 08. And yeah, you mentioned Delaware State. That's where Matt Cathell was. That's who he wrestled. He ended up going to Kent State later. That was the guy who would like warm up in pajama pants and like do the craziest stuff. Did he try something crazy in that match? Yeah.
Yes, funky. I think I won like a 2-1 match. I don't know. He threw the kitchen sink, and I just wrestled. I remember I wrestled really basic. And that's the other thing too, is like you just get different styles in wrestling, and that makes it fun too. I remember my coach telling me like, look, he's probably going to throw the kitchen sink at you. Just stay basic, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I assume, or maybe I'm mistaken, but did you watch the toughest bracket ever? And what did you think about the film? And did you learn anything you didn't know?
I think it was good because I was in the moment. I was wrestling in the tournament, so I didn't get to see the crazy semifinal, or at least I don't remember the crazy semifinal with Bubba and Darian. I didn't get to see some of those other round of 12 matches or the quarterfinal matches, and I think being able to see some footage was pretty cool. And I think that I think the one thing that surprised me was some things that weren't talked about, like the I don't ever remember hearing about the Palmer and Metcalf match and what happened, and whatever happened. Metcalf got his hand raised, but when you look back on some certain things, you're like, oh, that's interesting, so close, could have gone either way, and just interesting how things played out and why they played out, and even some earlier rounds. But no, I think you guys do a good job in terms of trying to find the gems of the sport and really breaking it down for people who may not know about what it was like.
Well, and we've had these debates in house
Yeah.
for years, and we decided on that one.
Yeah. Hey, so I was just in North Carolina for the camp that was out there, senior level camp, and then the America's Cup. And like, I haven't been around North Carolina wrestling, but it was really clear that like at the grassroots level, people are really interested, and becoming more interested. What is the growth of wrestling in that state been like from your perspective over the last few years?
I think more and more wrestlers are trickling down from the Division One programs. I think a lot of people don't realize that there are 7 Division One. We actually have the second most Division One programs in the state or in the country behind PA, and we have 7 Division One programs. I think over time, when you have you look at PA and what's the recipe? A lot of these guys become PE teachers or a teacher in the high school or go back to their local town or club and start the next cycle of teaching kids what it's like to be at a very high level wrestling Division One. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of interest in the grassroots level because more programs are doing well, and it helps having Campbell doing well. It helps having App State doing well. It helps having UNC doing well, and just wait. Glenn Lanham does a fabulous job with what he's doing, and being able to develop wrestlers there, and kind of a similar thing with us is just having,
About a 10-minute,
Yeah.
10-minute.
it's kind of like a 10, 15 minute
15,
interval.
yeah.
No, but just having the ability to develop wrestlers and have guys kind of come out of nowhere, and Raleigh's a great place to live, and so I think we end up having some guys stay in the area and work to develop. The one thing that I'll say about the grassroots level is it's nice. The weather's really nice here, and so you have guys playing lacrosse, soccer, baseball, and so the year-round development, I don't think isn't quite there that you get from maybe some other states yet, but you're starting to build some momentum. Just point in case, our little kids club, our Wolfpack Kids Club, I think we have 80 or 90 kids. I'll probably be corrected. Somebody will probably text me after this and say, no, we actually have 120 or something like that. But we've built a really strong following, and I think people are excited for wrestling in the area. And we say that wrestling's Raleigh's becoming a wrestling town, and it helped having the world team trials here and hosting some big duels. I mean, when we wrestled UNC last year, we had the entire arena almost filled up, and I think people get excited about something and about winning, and I think it's going to take a little bit more time in the state, but absolutely, I think you're starting to see some more North Carolina kids go out and really want to prove themselves at the national level and prove that they're Division One worthy. So,
and hats off to you guys, right, for selling out the arena. It's not just the winning, and you guys have won a lot more in the last several years than you probably did the long time before that. But there's this grassroots. You got to market. You got to advertise. You got to get the community involved, and you guys have done that and selling that place out against UNC and having the World Team Trials and seeing the support that NC State Wrestling has is kudos to y'all. So we're getting to the end of the line, but I wanted to play a game with you, and I don't think we did it last time because you were on, I think, before we were doing this, but it's called Wins and Whoopins. So I'm looking for your career from the first match you ever wrestled to the last. I'm looking for like one win that stands out as memorable for maybe your best win or maybe just a memorable win for whatever reason. And then one whooping you took where you got the tar beat out of you and it sucked. So, and take a second if you need to think about this, but you can answer either one first. But when you're ready, man, go ahead.
I love this. This is great because I've definitely played back some scenarios with coaches, with guys, and whooping. Well, win, I didn't realize it at the time. Jordan Burroughs and I wrestled our redshirt year. I think the Kaufman brand opened, and I beat him in the quarters or semis. I won the tournament, and he went on to get his red shirt pulled, and I think he went 2-2 that year as a true freshman or something like that. But the next year, we wrestled in the finals at the Wyoming or the Cowboy Open, and I joked that he grew rocket ships in his calves because he had jumped levels, and I think he took me down 6 times in the final. I think I lost 13-7 on 6 takedowns, and after takedown number 3, I just looked at my coach and I was like, "New game plan, guys. Like, not working." And the interesting thing is, made some adjustments. The next week, I had a pretty good barn burn. I think it was like 5-3 at Vegas, and that was in the Flow film. Just talking about that Vegas was a brutal weight class too. I think I finished 7th that year. But then my senior year, I remember getting invited to the All-Star Classic, and I was wrestling Bubba Jenkins, and I watched the week before, he'd lost to like an NAIA kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, he died. I'm going to go out and just put it on him. And I went out, and Bubba hit me in 2 big moves and gassed me and just humbled me. And I think that's the only time in college I was ever majored. He majored me at the All-Star Classic, but then same thing, made some adjustments. I beat him at Vegas, and then I beat him at Pac-12s. And he obviously went on to win a national title, but those were kind of big moments because it was such a big turnaround. I went from getting majored to winning. I was never tech fault. I was never pinned in college. I think I just that bitter fight in me, and the pride. It didn't matter who it was, and it would have been nice to see where I was wrestling a Metcalf my freshman year. I had knee surgery, and we were at Boise was wrestling Iowa at home, and I was supposed to wrestle Metcalf, but it was literally like a week or 2 after my surgery. So I was, pretty bummed about that just to see where I was at. But yeah, I think Bubba and Jordan were the 2 big whoopings and wins. I mean, obviously crossing the threshold of becoming an All-American was huge. And I tell people to this day, I was down 5-1 in the round of 12, got taken down and turned right away, and I mounted this huge comeback and ended up winning 9-8. And the first thing my coach tells me when I came off to the side is that your singlet's on backwards. And so I say, congrats, but your singlet's on backwards. So I wrestled the rest of the tournament with my singlet on backwards. Not saying I'm like, I'm not saying I'm superstitious. I'm a little stitious though.
Dude, are there photos of that? I gotta find that.
So there definitely is, and you can see the singlet's high cut up in my neck as I'm like celebrating, And but other than that, I think about the wins and losses at NCAA's. One year, Walter Peppelman hit me in a roll through tilt. Obviously, he was really good at that. And then in a scramble, caught me in a cradle, and I was down 9-1 at the end of the first period. And he chose bottom, and all I could hear was somebody yelling, "Cut him! He's broke! Cut him!" And I look at my coaches; they're not saying anything. I look in the tunnel, and my coach Chris Owens was just screaming, "He's broke! He's broken! Cut him, and go after him." And I was like, "I'm losing 9-1. Like, try to turn him." He's just like, "No, cut him." So I cut him, and sure enough, we got in a crazy scramble, and I just ran him over and pinned him. And that was probably maybe one of the most memorable moments I had, just because I'd never been down that big and mounted a comeback like that or pinned somebody, and I don't think in my career. And obviously at the national tournament, it was in the All-American rounds. It was pretty exciting. So,
yeah,
there's a few there for you.
Yeah. 9-1, losing in the All-American round to come back and win. Pretty gangster.
Yeah.
Pretty gangster. Awesome. Yeah, I'd put that one near the top as well if that was me. All right, running down to the other line. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Pat Pop. Well, actually, I want to give a shout out to whoever left this at Journeyman Northeast Duels, probably 2015, something like that. I called Pat and I'm like, or texted him or something. I was like, hey, I think I took a picture. I was like, somebody left it. It's like, just keep it. So it's one of my workout gear now. So thank you guys. Appreciate that.
That's awesome. Those are the old warm-ups.
Yeah. I love it. I got the matching bottoms. They're like way too big, but Whatever. But it's conference weekend and nationals are coming up, and I guess anything you want, really. We're going to give you the last word before we let you move on and get on with your day.
No, tune in. I mean, every round's going to be exciting. Our first round will start at 11, 1 p.m. semis, and WrestleBack's probably at 3, and finals at 7. They'll be on TV, but I think the semis are going to be that's kind of where the tournament is determined. There's some gaps, and winning in the finals is big for points and all, but I think for the wrestling community out there, not having the Big 10 or the Big 12 wrestling, just keep an eye on these conferences, these other conferences, because there's a lot at stake, and I'm excited for our guys to be able to go out. They've looked really good the last week or two, and we're ready to go.
Well, that's the time you want them to look good. A couple weeks leading up to conference. So, man, Adam, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you just got out of practice right before this, but thanks for coming on and joining us. Best of luck to you and the Wolfpack this weekend and the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Yep. Thank you,
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
Take care. So, Coach Hallstar talking about the Wolfpack, some good stories about his own career. Jordan Burroughs with grew rocket ships.
Dude, he talked about wrestling at the Kaufman Brand Open. You remember that tournament?
Yeah,
Did you
of course. I wrestled
it was
that.
the biggest. I think it was called like the biggest one-day wrestling tournament in the world. There were like 64-man brackets in 2 separate divisions.
Yeah,
man, that's like lost UNO, and that was who hosted it. It was Nebraska Omaha. That was that tournament was crazy.
Yeah. Hats
We
off
used to wrestle there
hats
too.
off to the Kaufman Brand Open.
Hey, conference weekend is going to be amazing.
First or second? Both.
Both of them. But this one coming up this weekend. EIWAs are tomorrow, all on Friday. Also, the MACs are 2 days. Start tomorrow, go till Saturday, and then on Sunday you've got ACCs and SoCon. So it's going to be wrestling for 3 straight days. Amazing stuff.
I'm ready for it. And then we break a week of awesome Big 10, Big 12. Break week and a half. NCAA is going to be killer.
Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's show, and I guess this week, but we'll be back next week. A brand new show, brand new set of guests. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see you next time.